completion of deliveries of K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzers to Poland marked more than the end of a large export contract. For South Korea, it represented a strategic inflection point, one that resonated strongly with domestic audiences who increasingly view defense exports not as isolated commercial transactions, but as indicators of national capability, credibility, and long-term geopolitical relevance. When the final units arrived in Polish service, the story was no longer simply about artillery. It was about how South Korea positioned itself as a reliable supplier to a NATO frontline state during one of Europe's most unstable security periods since the end of the Cold War. The background to this moment is the transformation of the European security environment after the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. Artillery, once considered a legacy capability in many Western armies, returned to the center of high-intensity warfare. Ammunition consumption rates exceeded pre-war planning assumptions, and European states suddenly faced an uncomfortable reality. Their industrial bases could not rapidly scale production. Delivery timelines stretched into years, not months. For countries like Poland, located directly on NATO's eastern flank, time was not a luxury. The requirement was immediate, and it demanded systems that were proven, available, and supported by an industrial partner capable of sustained output. This is the context in which the K9 Thunder emerged as a decisive option. From a Polish perspective, the appeal was not limited to technical specifications, such as range, mobility, or rate of fire. More critical was South Korea's ability to deliver at scale and at speed. Unlike many European manufacturers whose production lines had shrunk after decades of reduced demand, South Korea maintained a defense industrial ecosystem accustomed to mass production under strict timelines. For Korean audiences, this aspect is particularly important because it highlights a national advantage built not overnight, but through decades of continuous investment driven by the security realities of the Korean peninsula. The Polish decision also underscored another dimension that resonates strongly with South Korean viewers: reliability under pressure. The contract was executed during a period of global supply chain disruption, energy price volatility, and political uncertainty. Despite these constraints, deliveries progressed rapidly. This reinforced the perception that South Korea is not merely a competitive exporter in peacetime markets, but a dependable partner when strategic conditions deteriorate. In the domestic discourse, this reliability has become a recurring theme, often contrasted with the slower response times of traditional Western suppliers constrained by bureaucratic and industrial bottlenecks. Beyond speed, the K9's appeal lay in its operational credibility. By the time Poland committed to the system, the K9 family was already in service with multiple NATO and partner nations, including Norway, Finland, and Estonia. These deployments provided reassurance that the platform could operate in European climates, integrate with NATO command structures, and meet alliance standards. For South Korean audiences, this validation by Northern and Eastern European users carries symbolic weight. It suggests that Korean defense products are no longer evaluated as cost-effective alternatives, but as first-tier systems accepted by demanding militaries. Equally significant was the structure of the agreement itself. The K9 deal was not framed as a simple export of finished equipment. It included technology transfer, local assembly, and long-term industrial cooperation, paving the way for domestic production variants in Poland. This model aligns closely with South Korea's broader export strategy, one that emphasizes partnership rather than transactional sales. At home, this approach is often interpreted as evidence of strategic maturity. It shows that Seoul understands defense exports as instruments of long-term influence, industrial diplomacy, and alliance building. For Korean viewers, the K9's success in Poland is also inseparable from the broader pattern of bundled exports that include the K2 main battle tank and the FA-50 light combat aircraft. Together, these platforms form a coherent land-air capability package, attractive to countries seeking rapid force modernization. The K9 occupies a critical place within this package, anchoring ground-based firepower and enabling combined arms integration. This synergy reinforces the perception that South Korea is offering not isolated systems, but interoperable solutions tailored to modern warfare requirements. Domestic discussion has also highlighted the strategic contrast between South Korea's export model and that of some established suppliers. While the United States remains the backbone of NATO's military power, its export processes are often lengthy and politically complex. European suppliers, meanwhile, face capacity limitations and rising costs. South Korea occupies an intermediate space, combining alliance compatibility with industrial agility. For a Korean audience, this positioning feeds a narrative of national competence and adaptability, particularly compelling at a time when global power structures are in flux. However, public interest in the K9 story is not purely celebratory. Alongside pride, there are ongoing debates within South Korea about the implications of large-scale exports. One recurring concern is whether fulfilling major foreign orders could strain domestic readiness. Another is the balance between commercial success and strategic responsibility, especially when exports are tied to active conflict zones or heightened regional tensions. These debates reflect a more mature public discourse, one that acknowledges the benefits of defense exports while scrutinizing their long-term consequences. The question of industrial autonomy also features prominently in domestic commentary. Past export challenges, including restrictions related to foreign-sourced components, underscored vulnerabilities in the supply chain. The push to localize key subsystems, such as power pack components, has therefore become a central theme. In the context of K9 exports, progress in domestic engine development is often cited as a critical enabler of future deals, particularly in regions like the Middle East, where political and regulatory constraints can be unpredictable. For Korean audiences, this reinforces the idea that export success must be underpinned by technological sovereignty. Looking ahead, the K9's role in shaping South Korea's defense export trajectory appears far from complete. Poland serves as a reference case, demonstrating how rapid delivery, operational credibility, and industrial cooperation can converge into a strategically transformative deal. Other countries facing similar security pressures are closely observing this model. From Seoul's perspective, this creates both opportunity and responsibility. Sustaining credibility will require continued investment in production capacity, workforce skills, and research and development, ensuring that export commitments never undermine domestic defense needs. In a broader sense, the K9 Thunder has become a symbol of South Korea's evolving identity in global security affairs. The country is not positioning itself as a traditional military power projecting force abroad. Instead, it is emerging as a pivotal industrial actor, enabling partners to strengthen their defenses through timely and reliable support. This distinction matters to Korean audiences, who often frame national success in terms of resilience, technological competence, and contribution to collective security rather than unilateral dominance. Ultimately, the story of the K9 Thunder in Poland is less about artillery performance metrics and more about strategic signaling. It signals to allies that South Korea can be trusted under pressure. It signals to competitors that Korean industry can compete at the highest level. And it signals to the domestic audience that decades of defense investment have translated into tangible global influence. As debates continue about the future direction of South Korea's defense policy, the K9 experience offers a concrete reference point, illustrating how industrial strength, strategic timing, and geopolitical awareness can converge to redefine a nation's role on the world stage.